Hey guys, good morning. I am feeling like myself again. I am really feeling good. I just took my antibiotics and I have one more day of medicine and I am done with this. So, the white cells they found were not a whole lot. So, luckily, I don't have to be on antibiotics for long. So, kind of caught that before it got too bad, which I'm glad about. And then I have cream on my leg, trying to keep it dry. Not really doing a whole good job with this at night when I'm sleeping and tossing and turning. But I'm trying to keep it drier. So let's see. Today is my divorce. Today is the day my husband is in a few hours taking off the day of work, according to Kevin Leandro. Poor thing. He has said he has been so inconvenienced by taking a day off from work. My husband actually appreciates having a day off from the place. He never really liked being there. So what are my thoughts? It's the day of my divorce. Usually when you get married, I remember the day I got married, September 6th, 1991, and my mother had borrowed a dress for me. My father came by. He picked me up. I was actually running late for my own wedding, which I am not a person that likes to be late. So that was really kind of different for me to be running late. Um, what are my thoughts? It's kind of like a day of looking back at everything in my marriage, kind of looking back at everything. Like, especially like I'm here by myself in this apartment. It's a two-bedroom. And I'm like, geez, I have not been by myself since, what, 1990? 1990, I think? Yeah, I think it was 1990, 91, right around there. What happened was my husband and I were living together on Monroe Street in Concord. First apartment, the place was extremely expensive with the heat and the water heaters, and we ended up not making it, together. And so he went back to his home. I went back to my home. We were young, and I did not like staying with my family. He was okay staying with his family, but I didn't like not having my independence. So I went and got a place on my own, right down the road. It wasn't too far away at all. It was like a rock stone throw away. And my Uncle Bill and Tina, his second wife, had just moved out of, I think they just, no, actually, this place they had not lived in. This was a tiny little place. It was one bedroom. It had a tiny kitchen. I mean, it was like a addition to a house. It was really dumpy, kind of dumpy. But back in the day, who cared? People didn't really care where you lived or what your place looked like nowadays. So I was in a one bedroom, small living room, small, tiny bathroom, tiny kitchen, and I was just living on my own for a few months. And that's the only time I've lived on my own. And even though I lived on my own, my Uncle Bill and Tina were right next door. A matter of fact, my Uncle Bill would be like, Melissa, would you stop slamming cupboards at night? He'd be joking with me, well, kind of half joking. He'd be like, oh my goodness, at night I hear wham, wham. And I've always been rough with stuff. Like, he used to pick on me too with my walking. Like, when I would be in a rush and I would, like, walk really fast with my sandals, I would make noises. Like, one of the last times I saw him before he died, he was at McDonald's having coffee. He was looking at a book about construction on how to, like, build cabinets. He was very, very good with his hands. He could build anything. So he was working on some more stuff he was learning. He was self-taught. I don't even think he finished school, and he was self-taught. So I was walking in McDonald's. My kids, I had a dentist appointment for one of them, and he's like, clunk, 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 clunk. He's like, you are so loud. So I tend to be like rough with stuff, and I am loud. But anyways, I remember that apartment, and I was happy there. And then where was I? I think I was over at the old mill. Yeah, I had worked for Bregan Court Reporting, and they had a Christmas party over at the old mill in Epsom, New Hampshire, right down the road where I grew up. Um, and my husband was working there. After we both worked at Billy's, he was over there. And we ran into each other by accident. I didn't plan obviously the work party was not my, plan. And then we bumped into each other, we saw each other, we missed each other, and we were right back together. So he moved in with me, and we were together in that little apartment. And then my Uncle Bill and Tina moved out of their place, so we had that place, and that's where my mother put on a housewarming party, and people came over and they gave stuff, um, and then we were married over there. So my father had picked me up. Somebody had put a comment over here on my channel that you shouldn't be talking about domestic stuff and telling the whole world about domestic stuff. Actually, this is about divorce. There are many channels that talk about relationships. This channel is to help moms and girls. I will be talking again soon about some stuff in the abortion arena that I've been working on with somebody and what we've been talking about. And so anyways, I use this channel not only to help women keep their babies, but dealing with relationships. Dealing with divorce is very public. That's why you have witnesses when you get married, right? And usually what the witnesses do, if they're still alive, and, my husband's grandparents are no longer alive, but they hold you accountable. That's usually what they do. They don't do what my husband's parents do and say, oh, let's make our son unhappy and have him have a divorce. There's even a song out there somebody brought to my attention. Oh, Billy's something, where the mother is telling his son to stay with his wife or girlfriend or something because she knew it makes her son happy, right? Most mothers are like, no, work things out with your wife or your girlfriend because you love her. They're not like, oh, I have to have my son. He's my son and I have to have him. That is so unhealthy for a mother to be that way. So, I have a son who's looking to get engaged soon, and I'm just like, wonderful. He even said, hey, I'm not going to be around much. And I'm like, great, good, get out of here. Go live your own life. So, that's the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to raise your kids into adulthood, and they should be able to leave and cleave to their wife. Right now we're living together just because it's cheaper. I mean, with 3 jobs coming here, I've got one more in the works. So definitely 2 jobs. I could afford this place on my own, but I'm like, why would I want to spend more money? I have further goals, better goals for later on in the future that I want to do with my money than spend money on here. And as a matter of fact, I had just accidentally broke part of my string on my tank top here. It's like, so what? Right now I'm staying home. When I go out, I will change. But to stay home, it doesn't matter if you wear clothes that are kind of dumpy when you're home, right? So anyways, this is divorce, and there should be people there saying, hey, you gave your word in front of all these people, and you said that you wanted to be married. You made vows to your wife, and we are going to hold you accountable. We are going to hold you accountable that you're going to keep your word. So, unfortunately, on his side, they are not doing that. They are doing the opposite, which is so toxic. And then on my side, whole different story there. So there's no accountability for him. So it's kind of like, oh, my grandparents died, and my parents and your parents are old, so I can, do whatever I want now. That's not how it's supposed to be. And the courts should hold people accountable. They shouldn't have a just easy divorce. They should be like, nope, you chose to be married, we're going to hold you accountable. And I think alimony is part of that, holding somebody accountable, right? And child support. There is a couple things, but I think courts need to do a better job and be like, what are the reasons? And did you get counsel? And you are going to leave her something. And you chose to do this to your family. You chose to destroy your family. So you are having some consequences. So, I don't think we're doing enough in society to hold marriages together. I don't think there's enough preventative stuff, and I don't think there's enough accountability. And if we build accountability into our lives on a regular basis, there would be less divorce. So for me, you know, I think I just had a coach, somebody who I take her coaching stuff, send something about why people fail with their health. Most of the time is because they don't have accountability. They don't have people helping them, coming alongside them, teaching them. This person had said one thing that really just changed my thinking. She had said, if you have a nice looking car, you won't put bad gas in it, right? So why do we take our bodies that are very valuable and why do we put junk food into our bodies? And so that's kind of stuck with me, right? And I forget it sometimes, but I'm like, yeah, that's very true. Why do we put junk in our bodies? So when we have accountability like this in our lives, we should be able to have this in our marriage too. We should be able to be like, okay, this is how your marriage is. It's not something you just throw away. It's not something you listen to your mother and when she's not happy and wants a divorce, you go make your mama happy. That's on her. She's miserable. She wants to break up people's marriages because she's not happy. Her marriage with my father-in-law, Rob, they were at it all the time when our kids were little. They were not happy. He had talked about getting a gun and shooting himself and how he couldn't live without her. So their messy marriage, she wasn't happy. So she's like, let me just destroy other people's marriage, right? We should have accountability. One of the best ways to get that is to stay in church for the most part. Stay in church. Stay in community. I still go to church. And when you're doing that, what happens is you speak to one another at church. So, for example, I had just posted a video of a man holding his wife's hand and how that speaks volumes. I mean, you could see she was under him. You could see he was leading. And when a man is by your side, nobody's really going to mess with you, honestly. When you are, that close to your husband, you submit to him, and he is the head, as Christ is the head of the church, no one's really going to mess with you as a woman. And if he's providing for you and you can stay home and you can just help take care of, help him by taking care of your kids in your home and making sure everything is good there helps a man to be able to go out and fight the dragons every day and to come home to his castle makes a huge difference. So if you are walking close to your husband, you see, and this is what I see very clearly, you see half the people that would have approached you in life are no longer going to approach you because you have a man there. And many times as women, we see, it says in the Bible, for Adam was not deceived, but it was Eve. So we see many people trying to take advantage of women. And I'm not saying that men, like in my husband's case right now, he's the one going the wrong way. I'm not saying men cannot go the wrong way. But I am saying, oh, there's a text message. I am saying that when you have godly men who are protecting their wives and they're following Christ, as women, you are going to be protected a lot more in life. You're going to be provided for. If you have a father who is very attentive, you will be a daughter that is very secure. Okay? When you've had a father who hasn't always been there for you, you have to be out there and you have to fight your own battles. So, men have a role, is what I'm trying to say. They have a very important role in society, important role in the community to help society grow. And they should be a good influence in society, not a bad one. It talks about in scripture, if a man cannot even take care of his own home, okay, he is not qualified to serve in the church. He has to be able to be a man who loves God. He's under Christ. He loves his wife. He is attentive to her. He cares about her. He prioritizes her above every single woman. It's not a man who's got an eye that's gazing. Instead of taking his energy with that, he's putting it on his wife. He's putting, he's protecting his children. So my husband was going the right way at one point, and this is kind of sad because I think at one point he could have probably, his decision making was good. He probably could have ended up serving in the church as a deacon down the road as he matured, but he stopped, at one point he just stopped going to church. He stopped working at his walk with God. The house became an idol. He wanted to stay home. He wanted to, do what he wanted. He didn't really want to go to church much at all. So that, that right there, he just, what's the word? He went away. He backslid, or he fell away. Fell away might be a better word. And we're seeing a lot of people fall away right now from the Christian faith. We are seeing a lot of people. So we want to stay close to Christ in life and continue in the things that we learned. We want to stay close to God and work at it. So it takes time and it takes money because you're putting other stuff before you put, your job first. I think we also need to push back in society on jobs that don't pay enough, jobs that don't want to give people time off. We're living in a society where things are supposed to get even more expensive, I heard yesterday with Biden. So we want to be able to beat the system. Men should not have to work, they shouldn't have to work 40 plus hours in order to take care of their families. Men should be able to be home with their families, but when you have a low paying job and you're not making it, then yeah, you need to work a second job. But we need to change the way companies are. I just looked into a company that I am starting with, and I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. This company has, this is the employee handbook before you even get on. I didn't see the employee handbook over at Wendy's. This is everything we expect. I like that because right? Even down to, they're like, when you change drawers, in this restaurant, you will have, before you even clock out, you're going to have your drawer checked. Versus when I was at Wendy's, it was kind of like, someone can sometimes get in your drawer, or they don't check it before you leave. So if there is an issue, it's not being checked. And, when it comes to money, money's pretty important. You don't want to be accused of, taking money out of a drawer, or somebody else getting in your drawer and taking something. And it doesn't matter if they trust you, it's still, things can happen. So, you want companies that really put thought and effort behind what they do and why they do it. So I just think we honestly need to push back and have dads in the family more. We need to have courts hold families together more. So in a few hours, I am not going to New Hampshire. I already said I'm not going. I did ask for to be there on Zoom, and I'm told you have to be in person for the final hearing, and I'm just not going because this is totally on him. Totally on him for his decision. So I am also packing today. I have some more stuff to pack. I need to get everything ready by Saturday, when everything is pretty much out of here for good. So I am busy today, and then I have this job to go over there and talk to them and just You know, I've got my nonprofit book I've got to look at that's due. So that's what I'm doing today. I did go down memory lane. You know, I did go think about the wedding. You know, the wedding was a small wedding. Um, it was just perfect. I mean, it was just what we both wanted. We didn't want a big wedding. We went out for dinner after. We went to Vermont. I hadn't really traveled much, nor him. So Vermont was a big deal to us. And then we lived our lives and you know, the first year I did leave. The first year was tough. I wasn't a Christian. I think the first year of marriage, people need help. I mean, I was like, you know, I didn't appreciate his temper. We did work it out though. He did say, Melissa, you know, I'm sorry. He left a note on my car. You know, I was going to hairdressing school, working 2 other jobs. We worked it out. And then once I became a Christian, everything changed for like 32 years. 32 years of marriage, and we were really happy. I mean, we had our first 3 sons in a small little trailer. We didn't have much, but it was plenty. I mean, even when we didn't have much, we still had more than enough. And then we had, you know, he had his cancer. You know, we didn't have anything then. I mean, he was on workman's comp. And still, God took care of us. People came from the church and provided meals, and we had like a meal train. And then we had our other 2, and you know, we were still very happy. And it was right around the time when we got the house, like even the beginning of the house was great. It was like the last, let's see, 2021 is when he started going down. So like the last year or the last few months of living there, he went down. So it's only been the last couple years our marriage went down. I was talking to someone about a midlife crisis, and he's like, I don't think that's necessarily true, that people really have one. He's like, I just think like, you know, when they were 30, they couldn't afford a nice car, and when they're 50, they can, and that's kind of what it's about, you know? But he's like, it sounded like you guys were really happy before. And I'm like, yeah, we were. You know, we were happy. And even when family interfered, his family, my family, they didn't interfere. You know, they didn't get in my marriage. If I think once I said something to my mother and she's like, that's between you and Ben and don't get us involved. You know, they're like, we're not going to, that's your problem. We're not going to be, you know, in between you two, basically, or something like that. So even if you go to your parents for advice, you know, they should be like, you need to go talk to your husband. You know, I do remember once I did say something to my mother. She had some bad advice for me, but you know, she was just like, yeah, go, you know, you two need to work it out. So don't go running to your parents. And my husband keeps running to everyone every time he's upset about something in our marriage, whether it's work, whether it was the church, whether it was, you know, whatever, whether it's his work buddies, whether it's his parents, whether it's Leandro. So you're supposed to work things out together, you know, and that's kind of how I feel with my guys, you know. I'll tell you what I think before you get married, and then once you're married, I'm not saying a word because you're married. So totally different scene by then. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.